Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast chat. And today, let's talk a little bit about bringing up lagging muscles. I'm going to be very clear on this. It's a line I've said in the past. When people will say, "What is the best exercise for this muscle?" That's a silly concept. There is no best exercise. There's probably 6 or 7 great exercises for that muscle that exist, possibly more. Each one of them works it slightly different. And so here's the thing. Even if you found the exercise that you were convinced is the best exercise for that muscle, it's actually probably going to grow faster if you combine it with something else. In other words, no exercise is perfect. Most exercises that work a muscle probably work the majority of the muscle fibers in it. They probably work the majority. Doesn't matter whether you like the movement or not, particularly less complex muscles. All right, things like the quads can be a little bit complex. The delts can be very complex because there's 3 different heads and it has a lot of different uses. But when you set that to the side, you start to realize that some of those muscles really only have maybe one component to them that doesn't get heavily worked doing just whatever your other basic movements are that you don't even think of as working now. All right, just for example, the delts. Bench pressing or all of your chest pressing works the front delt. All of your rowing and pulling works the rear delts. Right? You can actually maximize their development off of these. It's the side head that maybe gets underworked. Side head gets underworked. And I'm not saying that even doing some extra rear delt work is even bad, depending on how many rows and pull-ups and things you're doing. It may be of merit. Again, depending upon what your workloads look like. But that one head is really the only one that you need to worry about much. If you wanted to maximally develop that muscle, because the rest of it's getting worked heavily already. And some people would even argue, some experts, that the splashover is strong enough from pressing and pulling that you may not even need to work the side head. There are some who feel it's not even necessary because it's still going to get enough stimulus. I don't know that I agree with that. Again, just due to the nature of that muscle, the complex nature of it. Most of the other muscles are pretty simple though. And what you're going to find is that if you combine 2 different movements together, you're going to get a larger training stimulus in terms of getting different muscle fibers that may be underworked on one movement slightly through there, of getting all of them. And then therefore you're going to potentially bring it up a little bit quicker if it's lacking. And it doesn't have to be massive differences, and it doesn't even have to be small exercises. Perfect example, let's say your chest. Your chest is struggling. Well, first off, I would look at the way that you're bench pressing. Are you pausing? Are you maintaining tightness at the bottom? Or are you bouncing off your chest? Right? Are you doing a very fast eccentric at the bottom and then bouncing? Or are you keeping your scapula pulled back, pausing, and pressing? See, first of all, you have to look at what you're doing. But bench press by itself, for most people, isn't enough to maximize chest growth. It's a great exercise. You'll see people argue that it isn't. We've discussed in the past of why that's silly. No, it absolutely is, particularly as reps go up. You can argue that very low reps might underwork the chest on a bench, but the data kind of shows that no, it's pretty effective for your entire chest, upper and lower, once reps start getting up, if it's performed correctly. But if your chest is particularly lagging, if you've only been doing bench press, then adding in another chest press isn't a bad idea. Sure, you could do a smaller movement. I'm not that big on that for things like the pecs. There's, again, certain problems involved with potential injuries and just less carryover to other stuff. At no point does anyone ever say, oh, my triceps are too big, I should stop bench pressing and just do a chest movement because my triceps are so massive. No, the people who come in and try to do smaller chest movements still end up doing extra tricep work. So they don't really believe that their triceps are too big. But another chest press, how about going to an incline? Adding an incline to it. Different angle. We're going to get more muscle fibers involved that maybe weren't getting worked as much. How about adding dumbbells? These are both things I have my lifters do, by the way. These are very common in my lifters. For them to pause bench and then either do like dumbbell chest presses or do an incline bench or a floor press or weighted dips. Right? Any of those, we're adding a different angle. That will help bring up a lagging chest. We're now working it from 2 different angles with big, effective exercises. What about biceps? which again seems to be everyone's favorite muscle. I don't care about it a lot. Again, it's the smallest muscle in the upper body. All right, your biceps are lagging and need more work. How about weighted chin-ups? And then do some sort of curl with it. Now, we could argue weighted chins. If we look at the data, we could argue that weighted chins are the best bicep exercise. We'll make a very strong case for that. Here's the problem. Sometimes your lats start to become a limiting factor there. In other words, the volume that your biceps can handle may be higher than what your lats can handle. Therefore, again, you might be leaving some gains off on the table if you only did weighted chins, unless you can do a lot of volume on them and your lats can recover from it. So adding in a curl, straight bar curl, it could be a dumbbell curl. Straight bar curls work just fine. Again, all the evidence shows they're phenomenal bicep exercise. A normal straight bar curl. You could do that after chins, okay? Now we're hitting two different angles. We're using a bigger movement and a smaller movement. Again, due to potential fatigue. It will help bring them up. Again, we're using two different angles. Triceps, closed grip bench press. You can do closed grip bench press and combine a JM press with it. Again, the closed grip's also working your chest. Lats. You can do rows and pull-ups or rows and chin-ups. Again, two very different angles. Now, obviously, your lats are going to get worked a lot during your deadlifting and other pulls from the floor also. But again, two very different angles that work the muscle differently. So when people say, should we be doing rows or should we be doing pull-ups if I need more lats? Well, why don't you do both? Again, you're going to hit different parts of the lat differently. How about the side delts, upper traps, all that stuff? Let's talk about delts in general. Snatch, grip, high pull. You could do a lateral raise afterwards. You could do face pulls afterwards. Face pulls actually work the side delt. If done with bands, there's again good data on that. Quads. And no, I covered yesterday. I'm surprised how many people argued, and biomechanically they don't have a leg to stand on. They just don't with the front squats. But let's say your quads are not growing quickly enough from your squatting. You've decided your quads are a weakling. They probably aren't, but you've decided they are. You just need to get better at squats. Get your workload up. You could do belt squats. Why belt squats? Easier to recover from. Takes the stress off your low back. Therefore, you can add more volume without beating your whole body up more. Works the quads and everything the same as a squat does. How about single leg exercises? Split squats, lunges, step ups, any of those things. We're now working the quads with, again, smaller movement. Puts less stress on our body overall, less axial loading. Okay, you could add those in to bring up your quads. About hamstrings. Well, good mornings. You're all doing good mornings if you watch my channel. If you're not doing good mornings, you watch my channel, you haven't been paying attention. All right, good mornings, but then you can include an exercise that involves flexion of the knee also, because we don't get a lot of that on a lot of the hip hinges. So you could add glute ham raises. In fact, that's a winning combination. Get really strong at good mornings and then do glute ham raises afterwards. Your hamstrings will get massive. But in every one of these cases, our solution is to continue to do a basic movement for these muscles, a nice big barbell exercise, but then if the muscle is lagging, add another exercise in. Add another exercise in if you really need the extra development there. And you could do that for pretty much every muscle in your body. And you could still be on a balanced, reasonable program if you have two big movements, just like the stuff that I described in here. Again, this is the best way to bring up a lagging muscle, is to add another exercise to what you're already doing. You don't get rid of the big movements. You add something to them. Because I've had that come up too when I'll say, hey, if you want to bring up quads, you could add this. And people, well, do I replace squats with that? It's like, no, you add that to your squats. You do it as a supplemental lift. That's your solution. This is how you bring up a lagging muscle. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.